They thought you'd never wake up. They thought you'd stay stuck, silent and spiritually paralyzed under their grip. But they were wrong. God has been watching everything. Not one lie, not one manipulation, not one calculated act of cruelty slipped past his sight. The narcissist may have gotten away with it in the eyes of man, but not in the courtroom of heaven. And now God says, it's time to do something, something holy, something final, something that ends the cycle for good, because the narcissist will never hurt you again, not after this. This isn't just a video. It's a divine summons. A message straight to the hearts of those who have cried behind closed doors, who have begged God in whispers, "Why won't they stop hurting me?" This message is for you, and you need to hear it now, before you let them back in one more time. God saw what they did, even when no one else did. There's a kind of suffering that goes unnoticed in this world. It's not the kind of pain that earns sympathy. It's not the kind that leaves a visible mark. It doesn't send you to the emergency room. It doesn't get posted about on social media. No, this pain is silent, private, spiritual, and for many of you it came wrapped in a relationship that was supposed to be safe, even sacred. But it wasn't. Instead, it became the place where your soul slowly bled in the dark, while the world praised the very person who was draining the life out of you. It's a cruel irony, isn't it, that the one who broke you most deeply was the one who knew how to wear the perfect mask. They quoted scripture. They attended church. They smiled at your family. They prayed over dinner. But behind closed doors, when no one else was around, their voice became a dagger, their silence a weapon, and their charm a lie that wrapped around your identity like a python. Quietly, daily. And the worst part was, no one believed you. You tried to speak up once, maybe twice. You tried to explain to a friend, a sibling, a pastor even, but the response was too familiar. Are you sure you're not being too emotional? That they seem like such a great person. They're always so kind to me. And in that moment, a deeper kind of pain set in, the pain of invisibility, the heartbreak of being unheard. You weren't just hurt, you were erased. Not only were your emotions dismissed, but your reality was denied. And so you stopped talking. You started questioning your own memory, your own discernment, your own worth. You learned to smile when your soul was screaming. You kept peace externally while chaos ruled within. But hear this, with every fiber of your being, God saw it all. He saw the way they twisted your words to make you question your sanity. He saw how they used moments of affection to keep you hooked, while slowly eroding your confidence. He saw how they left you crying on the bathroom floor, whispering prayers you weren't even sure he could hear anymore. He saw how they manipulated your faith, weaponized it to keep you obedient, not to him, but to them. Yes, beloved, God saw it. Every word, every lie, every fake apology. Every time they made you feel like you were the one who needed to repent, when in fact, they were the one defiling sacred ground. You, your body, your spirit, your trust. Let this settle into your bones. You were never alone, not for a second. When you sat in your car and stared blankly out the windshield, wondering how you became a shadow of the person you used to be, he was there. When you lay in bed at night, body beside you, but no warmth, no soul, no comfort, he was there. When you tried to sing in church but couldn't lift your voice because guilt, confusion and exhaustion had crushed your spirit, he was there. He didn't abandon you in your silence. He was storing every tear. He wasn't absent in your suffering. He was gathering the evidence. He wasn't distant in your cries. He was preparing a reckoning, because the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is still the God of justice. He is not blind, he is not slow, he is not passive. And when the cries of his children reach heaven's throne, he doesn't just send comfort, he releases judgment. And judgment for the narcissist who cloaked their abuse in religious charm will come, swiftly, precisely, righteously. You see, the narcissist didn't just break your heart, they trampled on something holy. They touched what belonged to God. And when someone touches what belongs to him, when they injure the heart he formed with his own breath, they don't just hurt you, they provoke him. So while you were blaming yourself, while you were spiraling into guilt and shame and spiritual confusion, while you were begging for a scrap of kindness or clarity or closure, God was already moving, already watching, already aligning events for this very moment. This moment right here, where he speaks to your soul and says, I saw it all. I heard the words they whispered. I watched the games they played. And now I am lifting you out. I am silencing their influence. I am restoring what they tried to erase. You are not broken. You are mine. Let that sink in. You were never too sensitive. You were never imagining things. You were never too emotional, too complicated, or too demanding. You were under attack. And God has finally declared, the war is over. Their time to harm you has expired. Their spiritual license has been revoked. Their mask has been weighed on heaven's scale and found lacking. And you, dear heart, you are being led out with dignity, peace, and a covering that no narcissist will ever touch again. So today, don't just feel relief, feel vindication, feel witnessed. The God who stood silent while you suffered is now roaring over you like a lion, and the same voice that once raised the dead is now breathing into your soul. I saw what they did, and I will not allow it again. It's time to do this. Follow what God is telling you to do. There comes a sacred point in your life when God stops asking and starts commanding, not out of cruelty, but out of a deep, urgent love for your soul. That moment isn't theoretical, and it isn't somewhere off in the distance. That moment is here, now, and it has your name written all over it. God has been patient. He has waited through your confusion, your fear, your rationalizing, your hopes that the narcissist would change. He has seen you cry yourself to sleep while lying next to someone who praises themselves in public but punishes you in private. And now he's standing in front of you, not with a whisper, but with a holy directive. It's time to do this. This isn't just about taking a step. It's about finally choosing to trust God over your emotional attachment to someone who has mastered the art of manipulation. You've spent years walking on eggshells, trying not to provoke their rage or their withdrawal. You've adjusted your behavior, your dreams, even your theology to fit inside the cage they built around your worth. But cages built by charm and guilt are still cages, and God is not going to sit by while you decorate the bars with scriptures, hoping the pain will somehow turn holy. What's happening to you is not love. It's spiritual erosion, and He won't let it continue. God has watched long enough. He has allowed enough warnings, enough second chances, enough opportunities for you to see the pattern. And now, like He did with Abraham, like He did with Moses, like He did with every weary soul in Scripture who came to the end of themselves, He is saying, leave what is familiar, step into the unknown, follow me, even if you don't see the next step yet. Your freedom isn't waiting for the narcissist to transform. Your freedom is waiting for you to obey. Obedience is terrifying when you've been trained to doubt yourself. It feels like a betrayal, like giving up on someone you once believed was God's plan for you. But hear this clearly. God will never ask you to stay in what He never ordained. He will never ask you to honor someone who consistently dishonors Him. He will not anoint your trauma and call it purpose. He will call you out of it, and if you hesitate too long, you risk confusing spiritual warfare for God's will. When God tells you to follow Him, He's not just telling you to walk away from something. He's telling you to walk into something, into healing, into peace, into clarity, into boundaries that don't require explanation, into an identity that's no longer shaped by someone else's opinion, but rooted in the unshakable love of the Father. And no, it won't be easy at first. You may walk through loneliness. You may grieve the version of love you thought you had. But God doesn't lead you out to leave you empty. He leads you out to fill you with something holy, something eternal, something that no narcissist can mimic, exploit, or take from you again. You don't need to wait for one more insult to finally believe it's abuse. You don't need to wait for them to cheat again, scream again, ghost you again, to believe they never had the fear of God in them. You've seen enough. You've felt the cold weight of their control, and God has given you a final word that overrides your fear. Move now. Stop asking if you're being too sensitive. Stop asking if they're going to change. Stop asking if you're making a mistake. If the voice you've been hearing brings confusion, guilt, shame, or hesitation, know this: it's not the voice of God. Because the voice of God comes with peace, even in the pain. It comes with fire, but also with freedom. It calls you into alignment with His truth, not into submission under someone else's. So you have a decision to make, one that may feel like death to your old life, but will resurrect your soul. Are you going to wait until the next apology that doesn't mean anything? Or are you going to believe that God is smarter, stronger, and more faithful than the story you keep trying to finish with a person He never sent? The Lord is not neutral about your suffering. He is not sitting silently while you're spiritually tormented. He is not watching your soul be dismantled and thinking, maybe this will work out. He's saying, I have more for you. But you have to come out to receive it. You can't carry the chains of that relationship and walk in the authority He has for you. You can't keep feeding what God has starved. You can't serve two masters. And in this case, the second master is not a person. It's a spirit operating through a person. And God wants to break its grip today. If this word is stirring something deep inside of you, don't let it pass. Let heaven and hell know that you heard the call and that you're responding. Comment below with the words, I'm stepping out. Say it out loud, write it, declare it. Let it be your line in the sand. Your obedience is not just a turning point. It is a spiritual revolt against every demonic voice that tried to keep you small, silent, and stuck. When you do it, God's divine protection will begin to cover you. There is a kind of safety the world cannot offer. No locked door, no restraining order, no physical distance can compare to the supernatural covering that comes when you obey the voice of God. That covering, divine, invisible, and all-consuming, doesn't begin the moment you hope for it. It begins the moment you obey. When you follow what God is telling you to do, when you make the terrifying but holy decision to walk away from the one who kept wounding your spirit, you don't walk out alone. You walk under a new covering. It is the covering of divine protection, the same kind that surrounded Daniel in the lion's den, the same kind that shielded the Israelites when the angel of death passed over their homes, the same kind that followed Jesus even into the wilderness where he was tempted by the devil, yet never forsaken by his Father. And that covering is not reserved for the perfect or the strong. It is reserved for the obedient, the ones who say, "Yes, Lord," even when their legs tremble, even when their heart aches, even when their whole life feels like it's falling apart. God doesn't wait for your confidence to arrive before he covers you. He responds to your surrender. Many people think protection means God will stop the narcissist from calling, from manipulating, from trying to re-enter your life. But God's protection is far more powerful than that. It doesn't always change the behavior of the enemy. It removes their power over you. It's the kind of protection that surrounds your mind when they try to gaslight you, and suddenly their words lose their grip. It's the protection that shields your emotions when they attempt to provoke you, and you feel peace instead of panic. It's the divine insulation that keeps your spirit grounded, even when your circumstances feel unstable. The narcissist may still speak, but what they say no longer pierces. They may still scheme, but their weapons no longer land. Because God has stepped in, not just around you, but within you, and taken authority over your soul. For years, you may have prayed for this kind of protection while still staying in the fire. You pleaded for God to rescue you, but kept returning to the same person who lit the match. You cried for safety while allowing access to the one who was spiritually violating your peace. And now, God is showing you something profound. Protection often requires positioning. You must step out of the line of fire to step into the shelter of His wing. He cannot build a hedge around you if you keep opening the gates. He cannot silence the voice of the accuser if you keep giving them your attention. He cannot guard your heart if you keep handing it to someone who tramples on it. And so He calls you, not just out of danger, but into His defense. God's protection isn't always dramatic. It doesn't always look like fire from heaven or parted seas. Sometimes it looks like strength you didn't know you had. Sometimes it's the sudden peace in the middle of a conversation where you used to panic. Sometimes it's the discernment to spot the manipulation before it even begins. And sometimes it's simply this, the quiet, constant awareness that you are no longer spiritually exposed. You are no longer unguarded. You are no longer theirs. You are His. What you once had to fight alone, He now fights for you. What once caused anxiety now passes by like a cloud, noticed but no longer feared. Because when you obey God, He doesn't just honor your decision, He surrounds it with His presence. He walks ahead of you into every room. He speaks into your conscience when you begin to doubt. He tightens the gates when the enemy comes knocking. And when that familiar voice tries to draw you back, you'll find something remarkable has happened. You no longer respond the same way. The old hooks don't stick. The old fears don't shake you. The old longing is no longer louder than the new peace you found. This is the supernatural reality of walking in alignment with God. His protection is not passive. It is active, dynamic, and deeply personal. It's not just about shielding your outer life. It's about fortifying your inner world. Because that's where the narcissist did the most damage. They didn't just attack your schedule or your friendships. They attacked your identity, your confidence, your clarity. They spoke into the sacred places of your soul and tried to redefine you. But now, the same voice that said, "Let there be light," is speaking again. And He's saying, "Let there be protection. Let there be healing. Let there be peace. Let there be no more access for the enemy to what belongs to me." When you walked away in obedience, you stepped under that decree. You are not defenseless. You are not weak. You are not walking into a void. You are walking into a fortress. And this fortress is built not with walls of stone, but with words from heaven. Words that say, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." Words that say, "I will go before you and be your rear guard." Words that say, "Though 1,000 fall at your side, it will not come near you." You are not just leaving a person. You are entering a realm of divine covering, where the Spirit of God becomes your shield and your deliverer. Let this truth wash over you now. God is not just protecting your future, He is redeeming your past. Every moment you endured silently, every insult you internalized, every lie that made you question your worth, He is reversing it all under His protection. He is reclaiming the parts of you that you thought were lost, and He is building something so unshakable inside you that the next time darkness tries to find a way in, it will discover there is no longer a door, only a temple, sealed by glory and guarded by God Himself. The demonic narcissist will lose control when you obey God. There's something the narcissist never expected: your obedience to God. For years, they built their dominion around your silence, your hesitation, your spiritual confusion. They depended on your kindness, your forgiveness, and your fear of being misunderstood. They fed off the assumption that you would stay, endure, explain, rationalize, and maybe even blame yourself. But the moment you began to align with what God was telling you to do, the entire atmosphere shifted, and their empire of manipulation began to crumble. Not because you fought back harder, but because you stopped fighting them and started following Him. You see, what terrifies the demonic spirit behind a narcissist is not your anger, it's your alignment with heaven. It's not your loud confrontation, it's your quiet obedience. Because when you follow God, you step out of their arena. You remove yourself from the web of emotional chaos they expertly spin. You exit the role they've cast you in, the one where you're always wrong, always apologizing, always trying to keep the peace. And you enter the place where you are no longer a player in their drama, but a daughter or son under divine authority. And that terrifies them, not because they care about you, but because they've lost the power they held over you for so long. For the narcissist, control is everything. It is their oxygen. Their identity is not built on love, but on dominance. They study your patterns, they anticipate your reactions. They know how to draw you in, how to make you feel guilty, how to mix just enough truth into their lies to make you second-guess your discernment. And yet, all of their strategies collapse the moment you do something radically spiritual. Stop reacting and start obeying God. Your silence, when led by the Spirit, is more violent to the kingdom of darkness than 1,000 arguments. Your boundaries, when rooted in God's instruction, are more offensive to the narcissist's ego than any insult you could throw. Why? Because these actions say something the narcissist never thought they'd hear from you. You are not my God. And in saying that, the entire structure they've built around you, control, chaos, shame, begins to fall. What they once used as tools, your empathy, your compassion, your faith, are no longer tools for them. They become instruments of warfare for God, turned back against the very spirit that sought to use them for evil. What begins to happen next is spiritual and psychological disintegration. The narcissist may appear composed on the surface, but internally they are unraveling. The loss of control destabilizes them. Their need to dominate doesn't just vanish, it intensifies. They may reach out more, they may lash out harder. They may send long messages, make surprise visits, spread lies, or attempt to flip the narrative, casting themselves as the victim. But what you must know is this: these reactions are not strength. They are evidence of collapse. It's not that they're getting stronger. It's that they're scrambling to hold on to a power that no longer belongs to them. There is a demonic restlessness that rises in a narcissist when they lose access to your soul. It's not just about losing a relationship. It's about losing their spiritual supply. You were not just someone they loved or even needed. You were someone they consumed. You were their mirror, their emotional regulator, their sounding board, their projection screen. And now, you're gone. Not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. That is a level of loss the narcissist cannot process without entering into further decay. And so they react, not out of love, but out of terror, because your absence is a reminder that they are not sovereign, that their charm has limits, and that God, not they, holds the final word. The most powerful thing you can do in this moment is stay hidden in God, not hidden in fear, but hidden in His presence, because the narcissist will search for access through guilt, through memories, through triangulation, through mutual friends. But if you remain under the shelter of the Almighty, their reach will fall short. What once pulled you back will now repulse you. What once silenced you will now expose them. What once felt irresistible will now feel irrelevant, because God has done something irreversible in you. He has replaced their voice with His own. That's what obedience does. It doesn't just shift your behavior, it shifts your identity. You begin to remember who you are, not someone desperate for crumbs of affection, not someone broken beyond repair, not someone responsible for fixing a spiritually bankrupt soul. You are someone chosen, protected, restored. And the more you walk in that truth, the more the narcissist begins to flail in confusion and fury, because they realize, perhaps for the first time, that their game is over. Their power was always an illusion. It only worked as long as you agreed with it. But now you've agreed with God. You've agreed with your worth. You've agreed with your calling. And that agreement is far louder in the spiritual realm than any argument you could have shouted in the natural. It declares to every dark force operating through that person, this soul is off limits. Do not mistake their rage for relevance. Do not confuse their attempts for importance. What you are witnessing is not resurgence, it is collapse. It is the wrath of a system being dismantled by heaven. It is the final gasps of a counterfeit authority, realizing it has been overruled. And all of it is happening because you said yes to the one voice that matters, the voice of the one who never controlled you, never guilted you, never diminished you, but waited patiently for you to return to His arms and His will. The narcissist is losing control, not because of a fight, but because of your faith, and there is no recovery for them from that. Only silence, only distance, only the space where God now dwells between you and every lie they ever told. From this moment on, the narcissist will never be able to hurt you again. There is a turning point in every battle, a moment where the tide shifts, not because the enemy gives up, but because you finally stand in a place where they can't reach you anymore. That moment for you is now. Not because the narcissist has changed, not because they've repented, and not because they've suddenly come to value what they destroyed, but because God has removed their access to your soul. They may still exist, they may still speak, but they no longer have the power to pierce, to provoke, to poison. What God has sealed off. It wasn't just the physical distance that broke the cycle. It was the spiritual separation. For years they operated in a space you unknowingly kept open. Through guilt, empathy, confusion, or fear, that space allowed them to walk freely into your peace and dismantle it. But the moment you obeyed God, something eternal happened. He closed what you could never close in your own strength. He sealed off your spirit from the influence of their darkness, and in doing so, He made a declaration that rings louder than their manipulation ever could. They will never hurt you again. This doesn't mean they won't try. They might. But it won't land the same. Their words will feel weightless. Their attempts will fall flat. What used to undo you will now feel foreign. Because you're no longer responding from the place of survival, you're standing in a place of divine identity. And in that place, the narcissist holds no authority. They didn't create you. They didn't redeem you. And now They cannot define or destroy you. Their reign is over, not because they surrendered, but because heaven intervened. God stepped in, and that changed everything.